So a woman goes to the doctor and says, "Doc, my husband is an animal in the bedroom. He wants to make love 5, 6, 7 times a day. I love the man, and I love making love, but it's just too much. Can you help me?" The doctor replied, "Well, medically, I can't really think of anything, but theoretically, this might work. From now on, whenever he demands to make love, demand money. $10 in the kitchen, $30 in the living room, and $50 in the bedroom. The man isn't made of money. That should slow him down." She agrees and thanks the doctor. Excited, she goes home, ready to use his advice. That evening, while she's preparing dinner, her husband comes home. He doesn't even ask about dinner. He immediately sneaks up behind her, brushes against her, and grabs her. She turns to him and says, "Honey, I have a new rule regarding making love. From now on, I demand money for making love. $10 in the kitchen, $30 in the living room, and $50 in the bedroom." He looks at her and says, "Okay, I think you deserve that. You do so much. No problem." He reaches for his wallet, finds a $50 bill, and hands it to his wife. She smiles and says, "All right, let's go up to the bedroom." The man says, "No, that's 5 times in the kitchen." So 2 friends are talking one night. One says to the other, "You know what? I'm going to sell my house, buy a boat, take women out into the middle of the ocean, and tell them they either give me some or they're swimming to shore." After a few months, the friends get together again, and one asks the other how his plan worked out. The friend says, "Well, it was working out great. I sold my house, bought the boat, and the first week I had this beautiful blonde on it. I took her out to the middle of the ocean and told her she either gives me some or she's swimming back to shore, so she gives it up. Then, a couple of weeks later, I have this gorgeous brunette on the boat. I take her out to the middle of the ocean and tell her she either gives me some or she's swimming back to shore, so she gives it up. Then, a couple of weeks after that, I have this bomb-ass redhead on the boat. I take her out to the middle of the ocean and tell her she either gives me some or she's swimming back to shore, and you know what she does? She pulls down her pants and pulls out the biggest manhood I've ever seen and says, 'No, you're going to give me some ass or you're swimming back.' His friend, looking dumbfounded, asks, 'So what did you do?' 'Damn it, you know I can't swim.'" So Dave and Jim were a couple of drinking buddies who worked as aircraft mechanics in Melbourne. One day, the airport got fogged in and they were stuck in the hangar with nothing to do. Dave said, "Man, I wish we had something to drink." Jim says, "Me too. You know, I've heard you can drink jet fuel and get a buzz. You wanna try it?" With nothing better to do, they shrugged and poured themselves a couple of glasses of high-octane booze. Before long, they were completely smashed. The next morning, Dave wakes up and is surprised at how good he feels. In fact, he feels great. No hangover, no headache, no side effects. Just clear-headed and fresh. Then the phone rings. It's Jim. Jim says, "Hey, how do you feel this morning?" Dave says, "I feel great. How about you?" Jim says, "I feel great, too. You don't have a hangover?" Dave says, "No, that jet fuel is great stuff. No hangover, nothing. We should do this more often." Jim replies, "Yeah, well, there's just one thing." Dave asks, "What's that?" Jim says, "Have you farted yet?" Dave says, "No." Jim says, "Well, don't, Because I'm in Ohio. So, a woman goes to her boyfriend's parents' house for dinner. This is to be her first time meeting the family, and she is very nervous. They all sit down and begin eating a fine meal. The woman is beginning to feel a little discomfort, thanks to her nervousness and the broccoli casserole. The gas pains are almost making her eyes water. Left with no other choice, she decides to relieve herself a bit and lets out a dainty fart. It wasn't loud, but everyone at the table heard the poof. Before she even had a chance to be embarrassed, her boyfriend's father looked over at the dog that had been snoozing at the woman's feet and said in a rather stern voice, "Skippy." The woman thought, "This is great," and a big smile came across her face. A couple of minutes later, she was beginning to feel the pain again. This time, she didn't even hesitate. She let a much louder and longer fart rip. The father again looked at the dog and yelled, "Damn it, Skippy." Once again, the woman smiled and thought yes. A few minutes later, the woman had to let another one rip. This time, she didn't even think about it. She let rip a fart that rivaled a train whistle blowing. Once again, the father looked at the dog with disgust and yelled, "Damn it, Skippy, get away from her before she shits on you." So a man rents a room. He pays extra on the condition the landlady prepare his work lunch every day. So on the first day, she packs him a sandwich on normal white bread, using the last night's leftovers of meatloaf, adding in some fruit and a bottle of soda. When he comes home, he politely tells her that it wasn't quite enough food for him. The next day, she makes 2 sandwiches, turkey this time, and adds a container of salad, some crackers and peanut butter, and a slice of cake. That night, he told her most apologetically that while the food was delicious, he found himself still hungry, and could she possibly put in a little more tomorrow? The next day, she uses long slices of sourdough bread to construct a pair of huge sandwiches and includes crackers, peanut butter, chips and dip, veggies and ranch dressing, and a whole 2-liter bottle of soda. That night, he smiles very kindly and tells her it was almost enough food. The next day, throwing caution to the wind and idly wondering if she's feeding his entire workplace, she cuts a loaf of bread in half and stuffs it with pounds of meat and cheese, an entire head of lettuce, tomatoes, onions, other vegetables, sauces, everything. That night, he gives her a dry look and says, "So, I see we're back down to 1 sandwich." So a new guy starts working at the local mental asylum. After giving him some general indications, the director tells him to ask any question he may have. "Yes, director, I have one. How do we know if a patient is cured and ready to leave the asylum?" "Well," says the director, "once per year, we gather some of them and ask them a question. If they answer it correctly, then they are cured and are free to go." The director gathers 3 patients for a demonstration. "So, resident 121, what is 6 times 6? 1,000, says the first one. "Well, no, that's another year here for you." The director proceeds to ask the second patient the same question. "Well, the answer is February." "My God. No, it isn't. You are staying here 1 more year." Finally, the director asks the question to the third patient. "What is 6 times 6? Obviously, it's 36. The director cheers the third patient and proceeds to communicate the asylum staff he is ready to leave. The new guy asks the patient before he leaves, "Good job answering correctly. How did you know it?" "Well, it was easy. I divided 1,000 by February." So on a bustling highway, a woman was cruising along at a brisk 75 miles per hour. To her surprise, a vigilant motorcycle policeman appeared in her rearview mirror, seemingly tailing her with an air of authority. Rather than heeding the unwelcome presence, she decided to defy the odds and floored the accelerator, the wind whipping through her hair as her speedometer climbed. Unfazed by the pursuit, she glanced back to discover not one, but two motorcycle officers now in hot pursuit. Determined to outwit her pursuers, she pushed the limits even further, pushing her speed to a daring 90 miles per hour. The thrill of the chase seemed to escalate as she looked again, only to find three tenacious cops hot on her trail. In a stroke of luck, she spotted a beacon of hope, a gas station looming on the horizon. With nerves of steel, she screeched to a dramatic halt and, seizing the opportunity, darted into the refuge of the ladies' room. 10 minutes later, she emerged innocently from the restroom, confident in her cunning maneuver. To her surprise, the trio of law enforcement officers awaited her outside. Without skipping a beat, she looked them in the eye and, with a coy smile, remarked, "I'll bet none of you thought I would make it." So, three men, lost in a dense forest, were captured by a tribe of cannibals. The cannibal king offered them a chance to live if they could pass a grueling trial. Their first task, venture into the forest and return with 10 pieces of the same fruit. The three men split up to search. The first man returned, holding 10 apples. "I brought 10 apples," he said, presenting them to the king. The king grinned and explained the trial. "You must insert all 10 fruits into your backside without showing any expression on your face. If you flinch or grimace, you'll be eaten." The first apple went in, but on the second, the man winced in pain. The cannibals swiftly killed him. The second man arrived, proudly displaying 10 small berries. When the king explained the trial, he smirked, thinking it would be easy. He began, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, but on the 9th berry, he burst into uncontrollable laughter and was promptly killed. In heaven, the first man met the second and asked, "Why did you laugh?" "You were so close to making it." The second man, still chuckling, replied, "I couldn't help it. I saw the third guy coming back with pineapples." So a police officer spots a car swerving erratically across the highway lanes and flips on his sirens. He pulls the driver over and strides to the window, his flashlight cutting through the dusk. Leaning in, he says, "Sir, please blow into this breathalyzer." The driver, a wiry man with a nervous grin, shakes his head. "Can't, officer. I'm asthmatic. It'll trigger a bad attack." The officer raises an eyebrow, unfazed. "All right, then we'll need a blood sample at the station." The driver's grin fades, and he rubs his neck. "Sorry, can't do that either. I'm a hemophiliac. I'd bleed out." Growing impatient, the officer adjusts his stance. "Fine. How about a urine sample?" The driver sighs dramatically, slumping back in his seat. "Nope. Diabetic here. That'll mess with my blood sugar." The officer's jaw tightens, but he points to the road's white line glinting under the streetlights. "Okay, step out and walk this line." The driver's eyes twinkle mischievously as he flashes a wide grin. "Can't do that either." "Why not?" The officer snaps, his patience wearing thin. The driver chuckles, leaning forward. "Because I'm way too drunk." So, a young man was crossing a road one day when a frog called out to him and said, "If you kiss me, I'll turn into a beautiful princess." The man bent over, picked up the frog and put it in his pocket. The frog spoke up again and said, "If you kiss me, and turn me back into a beautiful princess. I will stay with you for 1 week." The young man took the frog out of his pocket, smiled at it, and returned it to the pocket. The frog then cried out, "If you kiss me and turn me back into a princess, I'll stay with you for 1 week and do anything you want." Again, the young man took the frog out, smiled at it, and put it back into his pocket. Next, the frog yells, "Okay, if you kiss me and turn me back into a princess, I'll stay with you forever and do anything you want." Again, the young man took the frog out. Then he chuckled at it and put it back in his pocket. Finally, the frog asked, "What is the matter?" "I've told you I'm a beautiful princess, that I'll stay with you forever and do anything you want. Why won't you kiss me?" The young man said, "Look, I'm an engineer. I don't have time for a girlfriend, but a talking frog is cool." So a man walks into the doctor's office and says, "Doctor, my name is Mark, and I'd like to be castrated." "What? Are you sure about this?" "Why?" asks the doctor, amazed. "It's something I've been considering a long time, and I'd like to have it done," replies Mark. "But have you thought it through?" "Really through?" asks the concerned doctor. "It's a very serious operation, and once it's done, there's no going back. It will change your life forever." "I'm aware of that, and you're not going to change my mind. So please book me in to be castrated, or I'll simply use another doctor." "Well, okay," says the doctor, "but I'll have you know that it's against my better judgment." So Mark has his operation, and the next day he is up and walking very slowly, legs apart, down the hospital corridor with his drip stand. Heading towards him is another patient who is walking exactly the same way. "Hi there," says Mark. "It looks as if you've just had the same operation as me." "Yes, it seems like it," said the patient. "As for me, I finally decided after 37 years of life that it was time for me to be circumcised." Mark stared at him in horror and screamed, "Darn it, that was the word." So a doctor and his wife were playing golf at the local country club. While on the first tee, his wife drove a 300-yard tee shot straight down the fairway. The doctor was amazed and exclaimed, "Wow, I've never seen you hit the ball this well before." His wife replied, "Well, I took lessons." A couple of days later, the doctor and his wife were on the tennis court playing mixed doubles. Throughout the entire match, the wife smashed all of her serves and never missed a point. The doctor said, "Wow, I've never seen you play tennis so well before." Again, his wife replied, "Well, I took lessons." That night, they settled into a nice dinner at home. The doctor's wife brought out exotic appetizers, beef Wellington cooked to perfection, and baked Alaska for dessert. The doctor said, "Wow, I've never seen you cook like this before." Once again, his wife replied, "Well, I took lessons." That night after dinner, she gave him that look, and they went upstairs to their bedroom. After 30 minutes of fierce and passionate lovemaking, the doctor rolled over and gasped, "Wow, that was the best loving I've ever had." Before his wife could speak, he added, "I want a divorce." So Harry was at work one day, just sitting in his cubicle on the 3rd floor. He was upset because he'd worked there for about 15 years, but had never gotten a vacation. "I've worked for this damn company for 15 years. God knows how many hours I've wasted here, and they don't even have the decency to thank me with a vacation. Well, I'll tell ya, I've had enough. I'm going to go give Mr. Johnston a piece of my mind, and if he doesn't like it, I'm out of here," he tells his cubicle mate. He gets up and marches up 4 flights of stairs, kicks his boss's door in, and slams it shut behind him. "Listen, Mr. Johnston, I've given you 15 years of my damn life, and not once have you given me a vacation. I'm sure all the other drones down in the pit are happy just having a job in this economy, but not me. If you don't give me a vacation, I'm out of here." Mr. Johnston looks at him, at first appalled that someone would just barge into his office like that, but then he began to ponder. "You know something," Mr. Johnston said. "You're right. You've been one of our best and most loyal employees for a long time. I'm sorry. I hadn't realized that you've been passed over for a vacation." He tilts his head, contemplating. "I'll tell you what. If it means this much to you, I'll grant you vacation time, effective immediately, if and only if you agree to go where I say." Harry is a little surprised, as he didn't actually think this plan would work. "Sure. Where am I going?" "Mr." Johnston takes out a yellow post-it, writes something down, folds it in half, and slides it across his desk. "I've written down my favorite hotel. The wife and I go every year in the spring. I know it's not spring now, but it's down south, so it'll still be nice. I'll go ahead and call the airport and have your ticket waiting. You just have to leave immediately." Harry, having never really gotten a vacation before, was ecstatic. "Absolutely. I'll see you when I get back, sir." "Thank you." Harry heads back down to his cubicle, practically dancing with excitement. "How'd the meeting go? Do you still have a job?" his cubicle mate asks. "I sure do. He's sending me to his favorite hotel, effective immediately," he said. "Fantastic. Where are you going?" Harry opens the post-it and says, "It's someplace called the Lost Taco Hotel." The Lost Taco Hotel. The entire floor of cubicle workers erupt, grab him, and throw him out the window. Luckily for Harry, that side of the building has a lot of trees and bushes and whatnot, which broke his fall. What in the world? Harry ponders, as he picks himself up and dusts off his pants. Oh well, whatever. I'm on vacation. He hails a taxi, and off to the airport he goes. As they are making their way to the airport, he and the taxi driver get to talking, mostly small talk to pass the time. About halfway through the trip, the taxi driver asks him why he's going to the airport. "Well, since you asked, my boss is sending me on a vacation, 15 years of employment, and this is the first one he's given me. I told my fellow workers, and I guess they're jealous, because they threw me right out the window when I told them." "Well, that's a bit extreme," the driver said. "Where are you going?" "He's sending me to his favorite hotel. It's called the Lost Taco Hotel." "The Lost Taco Hotel?" The driver pulls over immediately, in the middle of a very busy interstate highway, forcefully pulls him out of his taxi, and drives off, not even bothering to collect the fare. What the hell is going on here? Harry wonders. He realizes he's pretty close to the airport, so he walks the rest of the way. He eventually arrives at the airport, gets his ticket, and boards the plane. It starts to fill up, and a lovely young lady winds up sitting in the seat next to him. Well, well, well. Looks like my day is starting to pick up. Harry thinks to himself. The plane eventually takes off, and after about 20 minutes or so, he and the young lady begin conversing. She tells him about how she's off to visit family that she hasn't seen in a while, about her cute little puppy she's leaving behind, just your typical small talk. She eventually asks, "So, why are you flying down south?" Harry, understandably at this point, is a little reluctant. "Well, after 15 years of employment, my boss is finally giving me a vacation." That's wonderful, she says. Where are you going? Harry sighs and says, the Lost Taco Hotel. The Lost Taco Hotel? The entire plane, passengers, flight attendants, and even the pilots grab him, open up the emergency exit door, and throw him out of an airplane in mid-flight. Luckily, they were flying over a large lake, and Harry landed in the middle of it. As he surfaced, he saw a fisherman in a boat speeding up to him. Holy Toledo. Are you okay? You just fell right out of the sky. Get on in this boat. Yeah, I think I'm fine, Harry says as he climbs in. This has just been the weirdest day. First, I get sent on my first vacation in 15 years by my boss. Then I get thrown out of a window in the building I work in, thrown out of a cab on my way to the airport, and then thrown out of the airplane. I just don't understand why everyone freaks out when I tell them that I'm going to the Lost Taco Hotel. The Lost Taco Hotel? The fisherman stands up very quickly, which causes the boat to tip over, trapping them both underneath, and they both drown. The moral of the story: never stand up in boats.
An 18-year-old Italian girl tells her mom that she has missed her period for 2 months. Very worried, the mother goes to the drugstore and buys a pregnancy kit. The test result shows that the girl is pregnant. Shouting, cursing, crying. The mother says, "Who was the pig that did this to you? I want to know." The girl picks up the phone and makes a call. Half an hour later, a Ferrari stops in front of their house. A mature and distinguished man with gray hair and impeccably dressed in an Armani suit steps out of the Ferrari and enters the house. He sits in the living room with the father, mother, and the girl and tells them, "Good morning. Your daughter has informed me of the problem. I can't marry her because of my personal family situation, but I'll take charge. I will pay all costs and provide for your daughter for the rest of her life. Additionally, if a girl is born, I will bequeath a Ferrari, a beach house, 2 retail stores, a townhouse, a beachfront villa, and a $2 million bank account. If a boy is born, my legacy will be a couple of factories and a $4 million bank account. If twins, they will receive a factory and $2 million each. However, if there is a miscarriage, what do you suggest I do?" At this point, the father, who had remained silent, places a hand firmly on the man's shoulder and tells him, "You her again."
I heard a rumor through the grapevine so bold. Lawrence Lim got a million stories untold. From green jokes, conspiracies, and edits with flair. You gotta follow him, baby, if you dare. Your feet feels empty without his magic touch. You got the blues and the laughs that you crave so much. With a click and a follow, you'll find some relief. Lawrence Lim's social media, a digital belief. Click, subscribe, don't miss a trick. Now, hey, leave your worries and come on, click today. Lawrence Lim's got the content right in line. Follow him now.